Hello, this is John Feldt. Welcome to the weekly water outlook for the southern region, including Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and parts of Kansas. Now I wanted to show you the big picture here for the current trends around the nation. We can see most of the South is trending towards drought or dry weather, but it's been a bit complex. You can see in July there was 2 to 5 inches of rain over parts of the area. Not just in Oklahoma, which has actually had some significant rain, 3 to 6 inches of rain in spots, but even Texas had that 1 or 2 day rain event in the middle of the month, so it's been fairly complicated. That sort of held us in the game here as far as precipitation. The core of dry area is over parts of the Midwest and the West, as well as the part of West Texas, western Oklahoma into western Kansas. Off to the east, it's quite a bit wetter over the southeast U.S. Now, these are soil moisture anomalies. Sometimes I show them for the week, sometimes for the month. This is a season. This goes all the way back from May 31st through the latest date. And this actually shows that when you calculate all that soil moisture, we actually have positive anomalies over parts of the South. I think this is a very complicated situation. I think these are calculated soil moisture anomalies. They don't really reflect exactly what's going on because those one-day events, those scattered events, I think rainfall that percolates into the soil doesn't really work the same way a more steady rain would do. If it comes all at once, it tends to run off a little bit more, doesn't percolate into the soil as effectively. But I did want to show that the key patterns around the nation right now are the driest conditions as far as soil moisture, this developing really dry area over the Midwest, and then over the southeast U.S. very wet. I think these are the key precipitation and soil moisture trends that we've seen so far this summer season. Now I did a little mini study. I have it in my newsletter that went out this week. And I wanted to point out, I found it sort of interesting here, that I wondered where drought started at the beginning of the summer, what happened throughout a summer. And I sort of suspected that it always expanded to some degree or the other. But what I found, and this was a limited study, was that there was quite a bit of variability. Now the top image here shows past years, and predominantly there was very little change. It didn't necessarily increase significantly. There were even some years where it decreased. So there was variability. You can't say that drought always increases. And the most severe drought, that's the bottom graph here, you can see there was even more variability, and you really couldn't say much at all. It was pretty equal chances whether it changed, decreased, or increased. So make sure you read that article in my newsletter. I get into that a little bit more. So as far as precipitation goes from July to August, really what we see here is generally a quiet type trend. Not a whole lot of change of precipitation one way or the other. Now over the coastal areas of Texas, we do see the possibility of some enhanced sea interaction, sea breeze interaction. We do see the possibility of some tropical interaction, but otherwise precipitation from July through August over most of the South, just some minor changes here and there. A little bit more over the central part. You sort of see that area in green in July turns into yellow, so a little bit more over the central part of the state as we get daily afternoon thunderstorms. So we'll have to see if this climatology works out this August. Now the current steering winds, I've been telling the same story for many weeks now. It's been pretty interesting how this has been so steady without any change. But we have this ridge in the west. I have that with the H for the high pressure, the area of low pressure in the east, and that is generally causing the warmer than normal temperatures and dry conditions over the south. Now there's a big caveat with that. Parts of the south, especially Kansas and Oklahoma, are close to the jet stream, and enhanced precipitations falling over that region. So parts of the south are in a transition region, parts of the south are influenced by that area of high pressure. Tropics are pretty quiet out there right now. If you read one of the posts I sent last week, on the right here in this image, I mentioned that there's a plume of dry air, dust, blowing off the African continent into the tropical Atlantic. And when you get these big areas of dust, that suppresses tropical activity. So if you look into the tropics here, what you see Look how quiet it is in this region, the main development region, very quiet. And what's offshore doesn't look like anything, nothing in the Gulf. So as far as the possibility or probability of anything pushing into our region, looks pretty quiet right now into the foreseeable future. I really don't see much. It's been very quiet. But keep in mind that the tropical season really picks up late in August. So the last 7 days, what we see here is we see generally a very quiet picture here. Very little precipitation over most of Texas. Actually, almost all of it. This is very scattered precipitation. Then we get in that transition. Here's the cooler air, here's the warmer air, and right along that transition. And boy, look at that in Kansas. That red is 5 inches or more. Some estimates are close to 10 inches. Very active. Some of it brushed into northern parts of Oklahoma, about 2 inches in here, and then it dropped off very quickly. So here's your transition zone in that region where precipitation dropped off. And you can see that percent of normal. Look at the extremes over the south. 6 times normal over parts of Kansas to near 0% of normal over parts of South Texas. So we really saw a very tight gradient of precipitation from well above normal in the north to well below normal in the south, and then far western Texas, much more scattered precipitation. So how much precipitation would it take to get back to perfect conditions? I show this from time to time. Parts of South Texas now are nearly a foot of rain that's needed. And this is where I say that I think this is actually a little bit more reliable than that other graphic that I showed before that showed the anomalies, calculated soil moisture anomalies. I think this is a little bit more reliable, showing 3 to 6 inches over most of the area. Oklahoma has got a lot more rain. That's in better shape, and that's showing 0 inches in Oklahoma. So the jet stream analysis, in a nutshell, very little change over the next week to 3 weeks, actually. I really see this type of pattern continuing into the foreseeable future. Now, it's not some days and maybe some periods it's going to be stronger, other periods a little bit weaker. It's not going to be locked exactly like this, but this predominant pattern looks like one that will continue. And I wanted to show you the temperature anomaly over the last 3 or 4 days, and you can see I always talk about this transition area. Blue are below normal temperatures, red are above normal temperatures over the last 3 days, 1st through 3rd of August. And right in that boundary is where the precipitation is most likely. So you see most of Texas is well within the warmer core, so it's not likely to get that precipitation, whereas Kansas and parts of northern Oklahoma are right along that tight boundary and much more likely to get the more significant precipitation. So here's the rainfall forecast for the next 7 days. No rain at all is forecast over most of Texas. This is very, very similar to the rainfall pattern we had last week. Really pretty amazing how similar this is, but again, with the upper jet stream pattern not changing, that's what you'd expect. And if we go into the second week, the 12th through the 20th, you might think this is the first week. Look at this, no change again. This could be 3 weeks in a row with very little change in the overall precipitation pattern. Now, don't hold me to this exact placement because this is a couple weeks out, but I think the thing to keep in mind is that the patterns are very similar, and in particular, Oklahoma looks like it's going to continue trending wet, and central South Texas, if not most of Texas, unfortunately, very little rain at all. And I took a peek at weeks 3 and 4, and unfortunately, it looks like this type of pattern is going to continue. So with the tropics quiet, the upper airflow not changing, it looks like dry spots will remain dry, wet areas will trend wet, and this will be a very persistent pattern. Now this week I have my newsletter going out, a lot of information in that. I have on Thursday the long range outlook. That's when I'll be looking at weeks 3, 4, and further out. And I will be issuing some sector updates throughout the week as needed. Thank you all for listening to my briefing this week, and I'll be talking with you again next week.